Hello everyone, I am Kerry-Lynne Findlay and I am the Canada First Conservative candidate in South Surrey, White Rock, and I thank you all for coming today. I have the honour of introducing Pierre Poilievre for our Canada First announcement. We also have some other dedicated Conservative candidates here, and I will firstly mention Indi Panchi, who is running here in New Westminster, Burnaby, Millardville. We also have with us Keith Roy from West Vancouver's Sunshine Coast, Sea to Sky Country. Stephen Curran from North Van Capilano. Suk Pandir from Fleetwood Port Kells. Rajveer Dhillon from Surrey Centre. Lita Cabal from Vancouver East. And last but not least, Zach Siegel from Richmond East Easton. After the lost Liberal decade, with costs and crime up and our economy down and under America's thumb, it is clear that the Liberals don't deserve a fourth term. It is time to put Canada first for a change. And we can do that with a new Conservative government that will axe the taxes, build the homes, unleash our resources, stop the crime, and bring home jobs to stand up to Trump from a position of strength. We need to be more self-reliant. Here to tell you more about our plan, I have the pleasure of introducing my friend and the only man who can stop Mark Carney, the leader of the Canada First Conservatives, Pierre Poilievre. And his beautiful wife.
Merci beaucoup, Kerry-Lynne. Notre whip, à part de ma mère et ma femme, Kerry-Lynne Findlay, c'est la seule personne qui me cause de faire peur. I was just saying that aside from my wife and my mother, Kerry-Lynne is the only person in the world that scares me. So she's our whip. That's why she's the whip. But I want to thank her, Stephen Karen, Rajveer Dhillon, Zach Siegel, Lita Cabal, Suk Pandir, Indi Panchi, and Keith Roy, our great Canada First Conservative team, qui sont avec nous aujourd'hui pour cette annonce qui va donner beaucoup de changements et de l'espoir pour beaucoup de monde. I want to thank more than anyone, though, the survivors of drug addiction who are with us today. They inspire us all. We have some incredible stories. We have three main organizations that save lives and get people off drugs: Last Door Recovery, Together We Can, Cedar Recovery. And I just had an opportunity to meet with numerous survivors of drug addiction who've shown the courage and the strength to turn their lives around and inspire countless other people. I was just speaking with Cody, who has broken his addiction. Now he's working in the energy sector and having a very successful, happy life with his girlfriend and his cat. And Kristen, who also defeated addiction, has been clean now for several years and is building a wonderful family life. Jared, who is helping others repeat the success that he's had in being clean for over 18 years. Now, Just to, before I go any further, I want to talk a bit about the enormity of this problem. Imagine if the entire city of North Vancouver vanished from the face of the earth. That's what happens when 50,000 people die. Like a region, a city like a mid-sized city in Canada vanishes off the face of the earth. We've lost 50,000 people in Canada to drug overdoses, more than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. And thousands more continue to suffer, living in misery as fentanyl takes control of lives. Every single death is an unspeakable tragedy. These are our neighbors, our friends, our brothers or sisters, our children. They had their own lives and their own dreams. They were little babies once, and their parents looked at them with promise in their eye. But maybe through a wrong turn, maybe through an injury they treated with an opioid just to relieve the pain. Or maybe on a night out when they were just having a few drinks and were offered something that was supposed to make the night a little more interesting, but was laced with a deadly poison in the form of fentanyl. Their lungs stopped and they were gone forever. During the lost Liberal decade, we've seen this problem metastasize out of control. It's not that the Liberals have failed to take action. They have taken action. They've taken a lot of action. They caused this crisis. They decriminalized crack, heroin, cocaine, illicit fentanyl in partnership with the NDP government. They provided millions of dollars in tax-funded opioids, which spread on our streets, were resold to children, and the proceeds used to buy more deadly fentanyl. They removed mandatory jail time for mass fentanyl traffickers, allowing the monsters and mass murderers who brought about this crisis and profit from it to be released from prison with very little penalty at all. They set up drug dens in otherwise safe communities where addicts are fed dangerous drugs, then children in nearby neighborhood schoolyards are forced to step on dirty needles or encounter other drug paraphernalia. The Vancouver police have pointed out this problem, and yet the Liberals refuse to listen, going further to expand these radical policies. Policies, I might add, that are not done anywhere else in the world. These are radical and extremely bizarre social experiments. And British Columbia has been the ground zero for this massive, deadly Liberal failure. British Columbia is probably the worst place for fentanyl overdoses in the world as a direct result of Liberal NDP policies. Overdoses are up 200% nationwide, and more than that here in BC. The Vancouver Police Department has said that roughly half of all hydromorphone seizures were diverted from the hard drug program that the Liberals and the NDP fund, while the Waterloo Regional Police and Niagara Police have said hydromorphone seizures are up by more than 1,000%. Hydromorphone is the taxpayer-funded drug that the Liberals are distributing. And in downtown Vancouver, the downtown east side, fear of drug chaos has driven away businesses. Once thriving Chinese community businesses are forced to move further and further away to avoid the danger. Total visits last year were almost up 10% compared to the year before. Shoplifting was up 12%, and the storefront vacancy rate is at 15%. Pendant la décennie perdue des libéraux, on a vu cette crise s'aggraver. Les libéraux l'ont causée. Il s'est lancé une dangereuse expérimentation idéologique qui a donné le libre accès aux drogues illégales, sèmant le crime et le désordre dans nos villes autrement sécuritaires. Les libéraux ont distribué des drogues dures financées par les contribuables qui sont souvent détournées et revendues à des enfants et d'autres Canadiens vulnérables. En Colombie-Britannique, où les libéraux ont donné l'autorisation au gouvernement néo-démocrate de décriminaliser les drogues dures, on a vu une augmentation de 200% dans les surdoses. Le service de police de Vancouver a déclaré qu'environ la moitié de ces saisies d'hydromorphone provenaient de ce gouvernement, de ce programme gouvernemental, tandis que les services policiers à Waterloo et Niagara ont remarqué une augmentation des saisies d'hydromorphine de plus de 1000%. Yet, despite the obvious death and despair, sadly, the Liberals refuse to change. Mark Carney recently told a group of Liberal supporters that fentanyl is not a crisis in Canada, just in the United States. It's hard to believe how anyone could be so out of touch. And he can't be trusted to change course. In fact, he doesn't want to. He's doubled down and recruited candidates who are even too radical for Justin Trudeau. For example, his handpicked candidate said, and I quote, Liberals would be smart to lean into drug decriminalization. And another said, legalizing all drugs would be good for Canada. Carney's star Liberal candidate in Vancouver is Gregor Robertson, an early advocate of drug decriminalization and unsafe government-funded supply. He wrote to a House of Commons committee studying the issue of drug dens, these consumption sites, and he said that local community opposition should be ignored. I'm going to quote him here. Factors such as the impact of the site on crime rates and expressions of community support or opposition should not be relevant to the federal government's approval process. I want you to digest that statement for a moment. Factors such as the impact of the site on crime rates and expressions of community support or opposition should not be relevant to the federal government's approval process for drug consumption sites. So this Liberal candidate who's running today, newly recruited by Mark Carney, says that even if drug dens jack up crime rates in a given community, they should be able to go ahead. This is a federal decision under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act. And the Liberal team want more of these. Liberals want more of these drug dens in every single community in our country. No wonder that when Gregor Robertson was mayor of Vancouver, overdoses increased by 600%. For 3 terms in government, the Liberal Party has caused the addiction crisis to spiral out of control. The question in this election is, can we afford a 4th Liberal term of rising crime, drugs, and chaos? Or is it time for a new Conservative government to stop the drugs, treat addiction, and bring our loved ones home drug-free for a change? We need a new Conservative government that can reverse this radical experiment and move the country towards hope and change. And that's why I'm here today. I'm here today to announce that a new Conservative government will fund recovery for 50,000 Canadians who need it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now, we've lost 50,000 people to overdoses. The least we can do is, in their honor, save 50,000 more. Let their loss not be in vain. To fund this program, we will end federal funding for opioids, defund the drug dens, sue the opioid manufacturers and consulting companies who created this crisis. We will eliminate back-office bureaucracy, and we will fund directly those people who need the help through groups that have success in delivering drug-free outcomes. And make no mistake, we will be shutting down drug dens. We will ban drug dens within 500 meters of schools, hospitals, daycares, playgrounds, and other places where the community is vulnerable. We will, let's be clear, these drug consumption sites do not work. And I'm going to quote the Lancet Commission study on this right now. There is no evidence that accessing a site lowers an individual's risk of fatal overdose over time, or that sites lower community overdose rates. We owe it to our fellow citizens who are still struggling with addiction to offer them a real chance to avoid adding to that terrible number of losses we've had already. We will expand access to recovery services with proven track records. These organizations, like the Oak Centre in Winnipeg, or Harvest House in Ottawa and Atlantic Canada, or Last Door Recovery, Together We Can, Cedar Recovery. These organizations have proven track records. They will be the ones that get the funding. We will set up a different kind of funding model than you've ever seen before. Normally, governments receive applications that have all the right buzzwords, they fork over the check, and afterwards a report is written. And it doesn't matter what the outcome is as long as all the paperwork is done. That ends. Here's how we're going to run our drug recovery program. Organizations are going to be paid a set fee for the number of months they keep addicts drug-free. And they will be paid more for harder cases. So if someone is a casual drug user and trying to break the addiction before it becomes serious, the funding might not need to be as much. It could be 10 or 15 counseling sessions for that person. But on the other hand, if it's an extreme addiction with someone living on the street for multiple years and on the verge of dying, well, obviously more funding would be needed for that. But the funding will be paid to organizations that successfully get people off drugs. Those organizations and interest groups who have been contributing to and complicit in the distribution of high-powered opioids and the harm production programs will be cut off, and they will be totally ineligible for any funding whatsoever. We need to break the addiction that these organizations have to keeping the crisis going. We're going to build it out based on the Alberta recovery model, which has shown a 40% reduction in the number of overdoses in 2023, more than 3 times what has happened in BC in that same time period. We will ensure that the Canadian people have hope that we can break the addiction and free our people from its grip. C'est pourquoi j'annonce aujourd'hui qu'un nouveau gouvernement conservateur va financer le traitement et rétablissement de 50 000 Canadiens. Cette promesse est dédiée aux 50 000 Canadiens qu'on a perdus aux surdoses. On peut obtenir une inspiration des gens qu'on a perdus en sauvant la vie de notre 50 000. Ça va financer des programmes qui brisent la dépendance et qui donnent de l'espoir aux gens de rétablir leur vie. On doit à nos citoyens qui sont encore sous l'emprise de la dépendance de leur offrir une chance d'éviter et d'ajouter à ce nombre terrible. On va élargir l'accès à des programmes de rétablissement dont le succès est prouvé. Il va inclure des services de conseil, des thérapies de groupe, des formations professionnelles, des logements de transition, afin de donner aux gens des outils dont ils ont besoin pour reconstruire leur vie. On va reproduire et soutenir des modèles efficaces tels que le Centre de rétablissement Bruce Oak, qui aide les gens à rétablir et retrouver leur famille, leur communauté et leur culture. On sait que le rétablissement offre un réel espoir. En suivant le modèle axé sur l'approche albertaine, qui a déjà réduit le nombre de surdoses de 40%, on peut sauver les vies. Mais ce n'est pas assez d'offrir un moyen de s'en sortir aux individus. On doit mettre fin aux politiques libérales ratées qui ne font qu'aggraver la situation. Des politiques qui ont détruit des vies et dévasté des familles doivent terminer. On va aussi bannir des centres de consommation de drogue de 500 mètres des écoles, des garderies, des hôpitaux et des autres endroits où les gens vulnérables se trouvent. Children should not have to witness open drug use or related criminal activities as they walk by dangerous encampments. They shouldn't be stepping on dirty needles. Seniors out for a walk with their dog shouldn't be worried that the dog might become contaminated with a drug residue left in the grass. Parents in the Lower Mainland should not have to comb through an entire children's soccer field before every game to make sure there are no needles for their kids to step on. And by the way, that is not a hypothetical. That is what is happening. In the Lower Mainland today, When parents arrive to take their kids to soccer, they have a volunteer team that form a line and they walk up and down the field to remove all the drug paraphernalia, the crack pipes, and the needles. This is outrageous. We cannot go on like this. After the lost Liberal decade, we can't give them a fourth term. And that really is the choice. After a lost Liberal decade of crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder, through radical liberalization of drugs, can we elect them for a fourth term? Or do we need a change with a new Conservative government that will ban the drugs, lock up the mass traffickers, close the drug dens, and give treatment and recovery to the people we desperately want to save? And I'll just conclude thanking Giuseppe from the Last Historic Recovery Centre, Kirk Boxton, who I'll be spending time with himself, a successful recovery story. On a note of hope, we can turn this around. You know, I was just talking to Cody a moment ago. He was homeless. And when he got taken off the street, the government put him in a hotel. He gets to the hotel. They put him in a room, knock at the door. Who is it? A drug dealer. Somehow someone informed the drug dealer in this hotel that there was a new person there. And he was feeling hopeless, and he was feeling lonely, and he succumbed to the temptation. So it was actually in this government hotel, government-funded hotel, that his addiction was re-sparked and restarted. There was no offer of recovery or treatment for him. A similar story for Kristen, who was in various different programs. None of them ever sought to get her off drugs. They continued, in these places, they continued to feed crack pipes and other paraphernalia into these people, keeping them hopelessly addicted and on the verge of death. That's not hope. That's not change. But these two incredible people turned their lives around. They got real recovery services. And now they've got jobs. They're contributing to our country. And in fact, I would say they have a superpower now, a superpower that almost no one has, because they've been to the bottom of the valley and they've climbed up to the mountaintop. And they now can inspire others to do the same. Every single person, every single one of you who's recovered, do not look at that past as a weakness. Look at it as a superpower. I need all of you. I need you to take your experience and go and lift someone else up. Grab that next person who's on a street corner, pull them up, and take them to care and break their addiction, to turn their lives around. That's how we're going to bring hope to this country. That's how we're going to bring real change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We will now go to questions. Please say your name and outlet.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre, Rahim Mohammed, National Post. First, thanks for making this an indoor event. I'm glad you have someone from the Lower Mainland on your advance team to give you a sense of our climate.
That's right.
The right call.
That's right. Well, you should have been with us in the South Okanagan the other day.
I grew up in Kamloops, man.
Oh, you know what it's all
tugging
about.
my heartstrings. My heart's still in Kamloops.
I know. I almost announced I was going to be moving the capital to Osoyoos, but thought that
it should be New Westminster. You ever hear that story?
Maybe
Victoria.
We have time for a story.
Victoria stole it from under New Westminster.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Gee, somebody's got to do something.
Yeah. So the Victoria team, they switched up the speech that the New Westminster delegation was going to give, and the New Westminster guy fumbled and stumbled, and the capital ended up being in Victoria. I think that's how it went.
Is that what happened?
Yeah. So is that correct? I'd heard that story kind of second or third hand.
It's breaking news, everybody.
Sorry, we have to talk about fentanyl now. So as you know, President Trump is continuing to use Canada's fentanyl crisis as a smokescreen for his economic coercion of Canada, even though a number of his fellow lawmakers, including his fellow Republicans, are calling BS on his debunked premise that Canada is a major transit country for fentanyl ending up in the streets in the United States. Are you worried that some of the language that you have used surrounding Canada's fentanyl crisis, language like super labs, kingpins, concerns surrounding uninspected shipping containers at the ports, that any of that sort of language is going to give oxygen to President Trump's narrative, which looks to be on its last legs? And are you planning to tone down any of that sort of rhetoric?
Well, I have not used rhetoric. I've used facts. They are super labs. In fact, I think that police call them super labs. The RCMP announced that they had actually shut down a super lab, which had enough fentanyl to kill hundreds, if not thousands, of people. I couldn't care less what a foreign leader thinks about our fentanyl problem. As you notice, I didn't mention any foreign leader in my speech, and I've been speaking about this for years. I put out a video about the fentanyl crisis in the Lower Mainland 2 years ago. And remember, everyone said that it was all wrong and all exaggerated. Now everybody admits that not only was my identification of the problem correct, but so were all of my solutions. So I don't accept the idea that we should stop saving our kids from fentanyl overdoses because of something the United States is saying. The Americans have the American problem with fentanyl has nothing to do with Canada. But at the same time, we have to take care of our own people. I'm not doing this for anyone other than the people who are suffering from addictions, so that not one more mother has to answer the rap on the door from a police officer who's there to tell her that her little baby boy or girl died on a street corner somewhere. I'm doing this for the 50,000 people we have lost. And I totally reject the idea that we cannot solve the problems that are in our own country because of a foreign distraction. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre. This is Janice from Fairchild Television. I want to get your response of many Chinese Canadian parents are increasingly worried about youth exposure to drugs. So how will your plan include prevention and education for youth in immigrant communities?
Thank you very much. And I want to take a moment to thank the Chinese community for leading the charge against the drug den in Richmond and against the radical drug liberalization agenda of the Liberal Party. First of all, we have to close the drug dens. No drug dens within 500 meters of schools, playgrounds, daycare centers, hockey arenas, or any other place where children should go. Secondly, we need to stop giving out taxpayer-funded hydromorphone pills, which are being systematically resold to children. Third, we need to bring in life sentences for fentanyl drug kingpins. These are anyone who is caught trafficking or producing more than 40 milligrams of fentanyl should get a life sentence. Fourth, we need to secure our borders with high-powered scanners and watchtowers to interrupt fentanyl ingredients from coming into our country. And finally, we need, for those young people who do get, unfortunately, connected with a life of drugs, we need to get them treatment and recovery services as soon as possible. We want, instead of having drug consumption sites, for example, we want to have a welcoming place for people who are addicted to come and get detox, maybe medication that will reduce the symptoms of withdrawal, give them counseling, and help them get connected with a recovery center whose goal is to make them drug-free. And that is how we're going to stop the spread of drugs and save our children. Thank you so much.
En français aussi, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. J'apprécie énormément le travail de la communauté chinoise contre les sites de consommation de la drogue, surtout à Richmond. La communauté chinoise est très, très courageuse et a bien mené la discussion contre les drogues. Moi, je vais, on va mettre des vendeurs de masse de fentanyl en prison pour la vie. On va bannir des drogues dures. On va arrêter de distribuer des opioïdes avec l'argent des contribuables. On va fermer des centres de consommation de drogue aux 500 mètres autour des écoles, des garderies et d'autres endroits où se trouvent les enfants. On va fournir 50 000 places pour les traitements de dépendance avec le but de permettre aux gens de briser leur dépendance à 100% et de devenir libres des drogues. Donc, s'il y a un jeune qui devient, adapte une dépendance, il va avoir un endroit où aller pour briser cette dépendance et recommencer leur vie. C'est comme ça qu'on va protéger nos enfants des drogues. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. We'll now take a question from the phone line.
Thank you.
Rob Shaw with Czech News.
Hello, Mr. Poilievre. There's 50 overdose prevention sites in BC. We have a premier here who supports them. As you know, the provinces control the administration of the healthcare system. In many cases, they're funding these recovery centers or putting in their own policies. So what would you say to our provincial government about what these changes mean for its ability to manage its healthcare system in this area with you as Prime Minister?
Well, we won't be making any changes to the healthcare system. We're saying is that drug use sites will be banned within 500 meters of schools, playgrounds, daycares, and other places where children go. They will not be allowed under the federal laws of the Controlled Drug and Substances Act. They will not be allowed if their goal is to perpetuate drug use. There should be a small number in limited cases that are open that, while they welcome drug users in, they immediately offer them a path to recovery, give them a connection to a recovery program, offer them counseling on how to break their dependence and start their lives again. We know that the drug consumption sites have been a total disaster here in British Columbia and around the world. We know the research shows that they do not save lives or protect the community. We also know that they cause a massive risk when they are near children. My message is, we're not going to allow these drug dens near our kids or our vulnerable populations. Rather, we're going to move to put 50,000 of our loved ones into recovery and treatment programs so that we can get them off drugs. And I note that there has been a big change in the debate. I mean, when I first made these points 2 years ago, everybody said it was very controversial. But I persisted, and now it seems that the British Columbia government is changing its position and moving slowly towards recovery, and I applaud that. The Alberta model has been by far the most successful. Let's build on that success. And I would also say the only ones that seem to be committed to the free drugs and liberalization policy is the Liberal Party of Canada. They keep pushing this. They have not reversed their position. They still want to fund drugs and decriminalize hard drugs. They still want to give light prison sentences to the mass producers and traffickers who are killing our people. If you give the Liberals a fourth term in power, this problem will only get worse. That's why we need a new Conservative government that will ban the drugs, lock up the traffickers, invest in treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Merci beaucoup. Le fédéral a la responsabilité de donner des exemptions pour des centres de consommation de drogue. J'annonce aujourd'hui que si les conservateurs sont élus, on ne va pas permettre des centres de consommation de drogue de 500 mètres vers les écoles, les garderies, des autres endroits où se trouvent des gens et des jeunes vulnérables. On va en plus remplacer ces centres de consommation avec des centres de réhabilitation pour briser la dépendance et aider les gens à ne pas être dépendants sur les drogues. C'est comme ça qu'il va falloir agir. C'est ça, la preuve est là. Le modèle en Alberta qui a réduit la consommation de drogue de 40% en 2023. Ça, c'est le modèle. Ça nous donne l'espoir. C'est ça le vrai changement dont le Canada a besoin.
Thank you. We'll take another question from the phone line, and this will be the last question.
Marianne Tepelto, Franco-Presse.
Bonjour, est-ce que vous m'entendez bien?
Oui.
Super, merci. Bonjour, Monsieur Poilievre, Marianne Despelteaux de Franco-Presse. Quand Donald Trump est arrivé au pouvoir, il a sorti son marqueur, puis il a signé des décrets. Quand Carney est arrivé au pouvoir, il a sorti son marqueur, il a suspendu la taxe carbone. Vous, si vous devenez premier ministre, vous allez sortir votre marqueur et faire quoi? Quel sera votre tout premier geste comme premier ministre?
Merci de la question. La question, c'est quel geste est-ce que je vais prendre immédiatement en devenant le premier ministre du Canada si j'ai l'honneur. Premièrement, on va couper les taxes et les impôts, c'est-à-dire réduire les impôts de 15% pour les travailleurs moyens et les aînés. On va enlever le TPS pour les nouvelles maisons pour économiser une jeune famille juste à 65 000 $. On va éliminer le TPS pour les voitures faites au Canada. Et on va rapidement abroger la loi C-69. C'est une loi qui empêche la construction de mines, usines de gaz naturel, pipelines et d'autres ressources naturelles qui sont nécessaires pour briser notre dépendance aux États-Unis, une loi que M. Carney a signalé vouloir garder en place. Donc, après la décennie perdue des libéraux, où les coûts et la criminalité est en hausse et notre économie est en baisse, sur la dépendance des Américains, on ne peut pas risquer un autre quatrième mandat pour eux. On a besoin d'un changement pour mettre le Canada d'abord, avec un nouveau gouvernement conservateur qui va couper taxes et impôts, bâtir des logements, exploiter nos ressources naturelles pour emmener nos emplois et tenir tête aux Américains avec la force. Just in English as well. The question was, what are going to be my first actions on becoming Prime Minister? Well, first of all, I will be cutting taxes for Canadians. I'll be cutting income tax by 15%, so workers and seniors bring home more of what they have earned. Second, we'll take the GST, the federal sales tax, off new homes and Canadian-made cars, so Canadians can afford a roof overhead and an automobile made in our country. Third, I will repeal the Anti-Energy and Resource Law C-69. This is the law that will make it impossible to build pipelines, mines, LNG plants that Mark Carney announced last week he will keep in place. After the lost Liberal decade of rising crime and costs and a falling economy under America's thumb, we cannot afford a Liberal fourth term. We need a new Conservative government who will axe taxes, build homes, unleash our resources, and bring home our jobs so we can stand up to the Americans from a place of strength for a change.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The event today.